And we are live. Welcome to this latest episode of Totally Unscripted. My name is Martin Hoxie. I'm joined by Charles Maxon. Hello, Charles.
Hello, Martin. Hello, Stephen. Hello, everybody.
And hello, Steve.
Hi, Martin. Hi, Charles. And hello, everyone else. I'm looking forward to today's guest.
I am, too. We always talk about building add-ons. This will be great. We'll actually get to talk to folks who have actually built and delivered a really successful add-on. And so we'll actually know, now it's not how the sausage is made, it's how it's actually eaten, which is going to be great.
Well, yes, and we're not talking small fry here. We're talking big. We're talking big customer base, big usage, big revenue. So I think for our viewers, hopefully there's lots for you to digest from this.
Absolutely.
As ever, the YouTube live chat is open if you want to ask any questions. I just want to quickly do a quick promo. Something that has just recently been relaunched is the Google Workspace Developer newsletter, and we're very pleased to have been featured in the community spotlight section. You can subscribe to that. There's a Google form, so you can subscribe to that. Anything you want to say? I know, Charles, you're involved in this to a degree.
Yeah, absolutely. So our marketing team is really trying to get the awareness out about all the things you can do. And so we're definitely interested in community submissions. So if you've got something you're interested in, let us know. You want to promote it, you want to talk about it, you want to showcase, whether it's courseware or learnings or whatever. We'd love to highlight great things that folks are doing. So for example, you can see Ben Collins is one of the renowned educators when it comes to building solutions on Sheets. They showcase some of the work he's done. And it's just a great way to actually share with people. So it's a big community. So don't just read, jump in and let us know how we can showcase stuff.
Excellent. So I think we should bring on our guests. I think there's been a lot of excitement around our particular topic today. So we've got Mikael, and we've also got James from, I don't know if you've heard of them before, Supermetrics, global leaders for marketeers, anyone that's got a bit of online ad spend. I'm sure you've come across Supermetrics and their array of products. So welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah. Thanks,
so I should so Mikael's actually been involved in Google Apps Script for a long time. So if people don't know the Supermetric story, we'll probably get to it in a second. But I went through my archives, and this is a post I wrote in 2010, so June 18th, so almost 11 years ago. So this is one of my posts where I was looking at getting Twitter into Google Sheets, and then you'll see there's a reference to something Mikael put together. This post is vanished now, but I dug it out. I dug it out the Wayback Machine. So this is really kind of, Mikael, some of your origin story. I think quite a few people have perhaps heard of the T-shirt story. Do you want to tell the T-shirt story one more time?
Of course, I can do that. All right. So 2009, I was working at a gaming company here in Helsinki. So I was an analyst at that company. So I had to do analysis of various parts of that business. So analyzing product sales and also marketing. And I was struggling with getting the data together to be able to do that analysis. And I was especially struggling with Google Analytics. We had a lot of websites we were tracking with GA, and it was a pain to get that data together. So every week I was copy-pasting numbers from their UI into Excel. And then 2009, Google released the GA API. So then I figured that probably someone has made a solution to get that data from there to Excel. I went online looking for that solution. I didn't find a solution, but I found a forum post by one Google guy, Nick Mihailovsky, saying that the first person who would create that kind of solution, linking GA with Excel, will get a free Google T-shirt. And then I thought that this is a perfect opportunity for me to try my Excel scripting skills. I'm not a developer by background, but I could do a little bit of Excel scripting in VBA. So I could try that out, solve that challenge, solve my own problem. And as a great bonus, I would also get that T-shirt. Then I went to work and I did this small script of maybe 50 lines of code in VBA, and that worked really well for myself and solved my problem. I didn't need to do copy pasting anymore. I shared that script freely online. I told Nick that here's what I have. I think it solves the problem. Nick tried it out, and obviously he was quite happy with that. And then he sent me the T-shirt. But he also blogged about that in the Google Analytics blog, and that blog is very widely read in the industry among digital marketers, among web analysts. So a lot of people then started contacting me, asking if I could do something more than this simple script, and if I could link to Google Ads and Facebook and whatever, all of these other sources and so on. So I thought about that a little bit, and then after a few months, I decided I leave that gaming company and I established my own business on that idea.
So
that's how it started.
A business was born, and now you've got 130 employees, you've got offices around the world, and you were born for a free T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
My serious question is, do you still have it?
That's a tough question, actually. So I may have it, I may have thrown it away. I have this kind of pillows in my sitting pillows, which I've stuffed with old clothes, and I hope it's, but they're not looking, because if it's not there, it means I've thrown it away and I've lost an important piece of history of the company. But I don't know. But in the early years, of course, I didn't quite put that significance on the T-shirt, because it was not a huge success. Only after some years it really started growing.
So I remember back in the day, I was working at a bank before I got into technology and computing, and I remember a very famous quote that an investment banker, a lead, said to me. He said, "I don't care where data comes from. I don't care where it goes. If I can't get it in a spreadsheet, it's useless to me." It's always stuck with me. And I never got the T-shirt, but here we are now, a decade later with your business, and you've got this this huge kind of set of products and everything. What's been the kind of the general impetus for the growth, and like where's the business today versus the free T-shirt area?
Yeah, so the T-shirt thing happened 2009. I started the business 2010 as a one-man company. I didn't really have any expectation for it to ever be anything more than that. And for 5 years, it was a one-man company, and it was growing slowly. Then what really changed the whole business was 2014, when Google was planning to release this Google Sheets add-on gallery and Google Docs add-ons as well, and they contacted me and asked if I would want to be one of the first developers to be among that group when they released that gallery. And I had a decent business going on with the Excel product, and that's I guess why they contacted me. And I was stupid enough at that point to say no to them, and I said no, I don't care about this that much, because people get that product mostly for free, so they are not willing to probably pay me either for my work. Fortunately for me, Google then got back to me and asked me again if I would like to join, and then I decided I'll do something. I started developing this Google Sheets add-on, and when that was released in 2014, that then really changed the trajectory of my business, and I could start hiring people and building the team and making this into a real growth company. So that was the turning point around the middle of the decade, and now we are at 35 million annual recurring revenue in euros, and 160 people in several locations. So.
And actually. Sorry, Steve. I just want to throw it on top of that. You also have a ton of open recs on your website for hiring. A real quick statement. What are you looking for, or who should they contact, or how should they get in touch with you? Martin, do you have a link? Andy?
Yep. So we have a lot of open positions, especially technical ones. So developers, if you want to join a European growth rocket, here's your chance to get involved. And AppScript developers, especially, we do a lot of stuff with AppScript, both in Google Sheets and also in Google Data Studio, which is another really big product area for us.
This is probably a good point to bring you in, James. So, senior software developer at Supermetrics. And you're specializing in some of the Google Apps Script side. So what's your particular role at Supermetrics?
So I've been with the company about a year now, I guess just over a year. And I've worked on the kind of what we call the self-serve products, so Excel, Data Studio, Google Sheets. I've worked on each of those add-ons a little bit. And then I've kind of coming now to essentially lead development on the Data Studio product now, really focusing down on that. So I spend pretty much all of my time in Google Apps Script, but occasionally you'll find me also, going anywhere else that stuff needs to be done. So sometimes in the back end, but it's not my focus.
Was Google Apps Script new when you joined? A new product for you when you joined?
Yeah, definitely new for me. I spent much more time in embedded software before, so it was a bit of a change.
I was going to ask, Mikael, you were growing organically, natural growth, but didn't you have someone on your staff or employee encourage you to go to a pitch night? Where did that actually happen? And then someone wanted to talk you into share your business with us. We'll give you more money. Could you explain how that went?
Yeah, sure. So I was when I started hiring people, I was actually decided that I'll hire only technical people. So I won't need any business people here because we just make a great product and it will sell itself, as was happening at that time. However, I was at one business technology conference called Slush here in Helsinki, and then one marketing guy came to my booth, and he managed to sell himself to me. So I hired one marketing person quite early on, Chow Hanbo, and then he convinced me at some point that I should go into this pitching competition that they are having at Slush, and not to raise money really because we were profitable. We didn't really need the money, but he said that it's good for our visibility and good for marketing. So then I went to that competition and I got really far in that. And then I didn't quite win the competition though. But then after that, many of the judges actually from the competition and many people in the audience, they contacted me, many venture capitalists there, and then they started trying to convince me to take their money, and I was quite skeptical in the early on, but then gradually I decided that maybe it's still a good move. I get to keep the control of the company. I don't really need the money, but I can get good advice from them. They can help in recruitment. They can give credibility to the company. So I decided that it's worth giving up a small piece of the company to get that help.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because some people in our audience, they monetize their add-ons, let's say. Mm-hmm. So it's just interesting to hear a life story of yourself, of starting small, one-person shop, growing organically, an opportunity to pitch to explode your growth even more. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there, Steve, too. There's a lot of folks. Don't forget, there's been over 1 billion downloads in the marketplace. And a lot of those folks start out like you did, right? They start out smaller, an individual, proprietor found a good idea. Sometimes the idea found them and they were coerced to do it. And then before they know it, they've got a pretty thriving business and a pretty great opportunity. And so that's why it's really unique when you browse through there and you look at all the different stories. And I think people gather to it a lot. That said, I think I would love, since you said you started off with a pitch, I'd love to see, for the folks who may not be aware of what your product does, who's the better pitch person? Is it James? You? Who's the show a little bit about the product?
We do have a sales team. I think they would be better to pitch.
A real product.
I can try to do that. Yes. All right. So how do I technically do that? I just share.
Yep. Yeah. Great. Share it up there, and we'll load it up on the screen, and then we'll get all out of the way so we can see full screen. When you're ready to do this, let us know. You probably don't do this every day anymore, do you? No. But
all right. Do you see the screen?
Yeah. Do you want to? Oh, I see the show. Oh, there we go.
There we go. There we go.
All right. So here is our product inside Google Sheets. So it's a sidebar here that you can get, obviously from add-ons, get add-ons, Supermetrics, you can find us there. Then you get the sidebar. So what you have here is a query builder. So you can use this query builder to get your marketing data into the sheet. We do support a large number of different marketing sources. So here you can see everything that we support. We have built integrations into dozens of the most important ones, and we are adding new integrations all the time. And if you don't have a specialized, like a native integration, then we also have a custom JSON CSV kind of general purpose tool that you can use to plug into any online source.
That's an amazing amount of data sources. I'm super impressed with how many things you've actually managed to. Are you like taking requests on demand from customers and adding them, or do you go out looking for new ones? Like, how do you determine all the data sources you're building to? I mean, there's so many.
Yeah, we actually have a quite a complicated process for that. So we take a lot of different inputs into account when we decide what to build. But so yeah, obviously, like what clients are requesting, that's one input. So we do have surveys to the whole client base. Then the biggest clients, they talk with our sales team or our customer success team, and those bigger clients, maybe they have a little bit more impact than the general populace. Then we look at the APIs as like how difficult it is to develop technically for these APIs. Also, what kind of relationship we can build with that data source company, and if they are willing to help us market the tool, help us build the integration, and so on. So all different factors come into play here.
It's a really slick looking interface, and obviously there's lots of talk around card service and alternate runtimes, but from what you've got here, I couldn't see that fitting into those services. So is it very much you have to use HTML service for what your needs, just because of the volume of stuff that you've got?
Yeah, for sure, and we do want to design kind of everything ourselves. So we haven't really even considered moving away from there. So I think we are quite happy with having HTML service.
Yeah, and we hear that from folks. There's a little more control in the HTML, a little more flexibility as far as layout and design. Obviously, the card builder, the card framework was built to kind of make it easier and more consistent, but it's still maturing, and there's still improvements that could probably be made to it. But I agree with you. There's times to do it with HTML service. There's times to do it in the new version. There's nothing stopping people from even doing both. Obviously, if you wanted to hit things like Gmail or Drive or Calendar, as also you could use the card service as well too. But this is, like Martin said, I love your look. I think it's great. It's just it's easy to scroll and view through, and crisp, and really feel like it's part of the product, which is the whole attraction to an add-on.
The approach I've seen a lot of add-on developers take as well is they're baking in a lot of the API access into their add-on. But having played around with I know that a lot of your data is actually sitting in Supermetrics. So is it more of a proxy model that the add-on that you've got is communicating with your own servers, which then might subsequently communicate with another API?
Yes, that's the case. So obviously, sidebar is communicating with AppScript, and then we have certain logic in AppScript, and then we have our like proper backend running in GCP and AWS, where we have most of the kind of connector logic to these different APIs and our central processing logic. So the AppScript side doesn't really know about the source APIs. There's no logic related to the source APIs in AppScript.
Was that a model that evolved quite rapidly, or is that kind of you started off with that whole philosophy from the beginning?
Yeah, I started off with that because I saw that it's better to have that logic in the backend, so we can utilize the same logic across the different products. Of course, initially I had the Excel product, and I built the logic initially inside VBA in Excel. But then when I was starting to work on the Google Sheets product, then I realized that I do want to kind of generalize that logic, that I don't want to have separate set of connectors in Excel and Google Sheets. So I moved everything to the backend, and then both of these products started routing their queries through that central backend. And now, of course, Data Studio And our other products, like our data warehousing products, are also using the same connector logic. So we build a connector once, and it works, across all of these different destinations.
So James, you mentioned that you were more kind of data studio side, but so do you do any? Do you touch the Sheets add-on at all?
Yeah, I guess we're a rapidly growing team. So I guess it's basically due to history that we had the team of people who worked in GAFs, and as we've been hiring and producing more and more features and getting bigger, it's going this way now that we're kind of separating out and specializing more. But certainly, for the past year, I've worked on all of the customer-facing products in this kind of line.
So in terms of, this is one of the topics that comes up quite often. It's like we get very few glimpses into kind of the enterprise running of Google Apps Script, and just how people do this on scales. Can you shed a bit of light on some of the things that you use in terms of continuous development or other bits and pieces with the development of your products here?
Yeah, sure. Can I talk a little bit about that? I guess App Script is kind of really great to get started. It really, there's this editor, you can just start typing in, and then you have an add-on, and you're off, and you have a product. And I guess kind of a lot of what I've been doing is pulling a bit more away from that. There's this concept in DevOps of shift left, the idea that the nearer you can move the errors to the developer, the better the chance you have fixing them. So rather than kind of putting stuff straight into the editor and then testing it in like the products, we're pulling it way back more to the actual developer desktop. So lots of effort into unit testing, lots of static analysis. We've migrated things across to TypeScript recently, which is, I think, been a huge win for us. Also pushing for basically working out which bits of AppScript we can kind of mock out to make it easier to simulate stuff locally. Of course, all final testing will happen in the product because it's pretty complicated. But yeah, I think that's been a big thing for us, has been really making sure that as much as possible we can replicate the Google environment on every developer's laptop. That's been a big thing for us. And also Google Clasp. The Clasp tool has been an absolute lifesaver for just we have CI set up, so as soon as I'm merging stuff, I can just trust that it's going to be put into the file somewhere, versioned, and it's ready to deploy whenever I want it. So that's been pretty amazing.
Do you use that exclusively? Do the rest of the folks on the team use it exclusively, or does anybody bother straight with the old IDE? Is it all Clasp based?
Yeah, we're pretty much all into Clasp now. I guess it's been spreading for a while. We had some homebrew solution, which was basically doing the same thing. And then we realized that Clasp existed and was pretty good. So yeah, most of that's used for the local development and also for the actual deployments for production. It's really central to our deployment processes.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, Martin, why don't we jump back and see the rest of Mikael's demo, and then we can talk more about how James is building it. So I'd love to see personally, I love to see the rest of the demo.
There we go.
Awesome. You'll find one of the things we do is we get sidebar here a little bit with some of the geeky stuff, but I want to see the good stuff.
All right. So yeah. So we have the list of data sources. So a typical user would first select where they want to fetch data from. Of course, first you need to authenticate. So if you select a new one you haven't authenticated yet, then it would ask you to log into that data source. Now we have Facebook ads selected here, which is one of the most popular sources that we have. Then you have various selections you should make to run the query. So first of all, which Facebook advertising account you wanna fetch data from. So we can use our own account. Then which date range you want to fetch data from. So we can take year to date. And then what data you want to get. So which metrics. So we can get the number of impressions, the reach, frequency, maybe the amount spent. And then we can split the data. So the power of the product comes from being able to split that data in a very flexible ways. So if you want monthly numbers, we can do it like this. So here we have by month from the start of the year these metrics that we picked, and then if you want a further split, you can split the same data by campaign. Where do we have campaign name? Here.
Can I ask a geeky question, Charles?
Sure.
So is there a particular framework you're using for the UI? React or...
Do you want me to hop in there, Mikael?
Yeah, James, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's kind of classically jQuery. Most of this is built with jQuery, but bits of it are slowly migrating across to React. And I think the cool thing is the schedule tab, which might come up in the demo, actually runs its own little micro front end. So the scheduler can actually be split off and tested and run completely separately.
Right.
And this is kind of the way we're going with more modular front ends to make it easier to test these things.
Mm.
Yeah, so jQuery was the only thing I knew when I built the first versions, and there's still a lot of that code around. So we are gradually moving away from that. So here's the schedule tab. So typically a user would run queries, maybe from different data sources. They could add calculations, add charts based on that, maybe format them to look a bit nicer, and then they would add a trigger to automatically refresh that data. So you can put the automatic daily refresh, for instance, or you can even put a automatic email. So that would send that as a PDF attachment or an Excel attachment to your email or to someone in your organization or to your clients if you're doing this for a client. So that would be the typical way to use the add-on.
So in terms of the triggers, are you just using the built-in AppScript trigger service for that?
We do have quite a lot of our own logic in addition to that. So maybe James, do you want to go into some detail on that?
Yeah, I guess I haven't worked so much on the new systems, but yeah, I guess originally it was just the AppScript triggers was the system that was used, and there was kind of an experiment with running it entirely on the back end. And I wasn't actually working in the company at that time, so I'm not sure. For some reason, I decided that wasn't actually that great. So now we're running this hybrid system, we call it, where we're kind of somewhere in between. Where I believe backend does a lot of the scheduling, but a lot of the logic is run through AppScript.
Right.
And that seems to be working really nicely for us in a minute.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we faced quite a lot of difficulty with the 6-minute runtime of the triggers. Obviously, the queries that I run here for the demo were really fast, and most of the queries are fast, but some of the data sources that we support are really slow. So the 6 minutes per hour is simply not enough to run those queries. So that's why we needed to build our own system on top of that.
Well, I know a lot of customers love their dashboards and charting. So what do you offer for that?
Yep. So we have a template gallery. So here you can find a large number of different templates that you can load in the Google Sheet. And then we of course do offer also paid kind of services to build reports for you if that's what you want. But we do see that most of our clients in the Google Sheets side, the clients really do buy the product because it offers so much flexibility for the client to build reports. So they typically don't use the templates that much, and that's not something that they really want that much in Google Sheets, because the users do want to build stuff on their own. And that's the great thing about this product, that it supports that. Of course, if you just want a beautiful dashboard, there are other tools that are easier for that purpose, including our own Data Studio product, where it's really easy to get a nice looking dashboard out. But the power of this tool is that you can really slice and dice the data and really do calculations on the data.
Yeah, the flexibility, again, is why people normally are in the spreadsheet for the first place, right? You mentioned earlier, I think, kind of the do-it-yourselfer model, right? The folks that want to construct their own things, and they know the data well, and they know spreadsheeting well. They just want to figure out like I said, how do I get all my data now where I can work with it and I understand it? And it's such a great use case, and it looks so super easy to use that you're saving a lot of steps for a lot of people. I'm sure there's people that don't even fumble with the do-it-yourself way on pulling data. They just look at your tool and go, "This is too easy. Why wouldn't I do this? This just makes so much sense."
Yeah, well, I built this for my own use case. I very well know the struggle that analysts and marketers are having with getting the data together. So I kind of knew very well on how I would like to solve that problem for myself, and it turns out that that solution then was useful for quite a lot of people.
And I hear this question an awful lot as well too. And I know you're, the foundation of your tool and a lot of your primary data sources are actually, analytics of advertising type stuff. But do you find people are using it for other? I mean, I know you have expanded your data sources, but are there other uses, like people are using it against generic data, or whether it's just as a better tool that's not necessarily marketing data? I mean, has it become more of a tool than a specific niche platform for analytics? Is it other use cases?
Definitely, there are other use cases. Even for the very first connector, like Google Analytics, of course, you can use that for other purposes than that's kind of marketing related. Right now, for instance, we do see a lot of people actually fetching different kind of COVID data sets from various sources. That's quite interesting. We haven't, followed up on what exactly these clients are doing or who they are, but we do see that our kind of general purpose connector, the custom JSON, CSV, XML connector, that is being used to fetch a lot of COVID-related data sets. So there are actually quite a few non-marketing use cases as well.
That's pretty cool.
I know there's a big researcher community out there using Google Sheets. I occasionally get contacted by one or two PhD students or looking to do stuff. So it's really interesting that you have that flexibility, that people are exploring the product in ways that you'd never really envisioned. There was actually a question. So obviously there's a lot of layers in terms of the interface there on the add-on, and Joshua Snyder was just asking. It's probably for you, James. Are there tools or frameworks that you're using for the testing of add-ons?
Yeah, I guess I'd say we're still relatively early in the testing journey in a lot of ways. So the back end is very well tested, I would say. There's a lot of system level tests, unit tests, everything you would expect from a kind of well tested piece of software. On the gas side, we've been pushing towards doing a lot of local tests. Obviously, this does mean if you're running things in Node, you're going to miss out on all the gas built-ins. So we have been doing quite a lot of mocking to get around those, and I'm working more and more on making sort of better mocks. So Jest is kind of our go-to unit test tool. Also started doing a bit of browser automation with Puppeteer. This is something I'm kind of not sure whether it's worth committing to this path, because as soon as you start writing these very intense UI testing tests, it can be quite difficult getting through like the Google auth screens and then clicking a button somewhere in the Google Sheets UI. So I was actually mainly using this. I had a couple of use cases. We have a whole load of Data Studio templates, which you can access from our website. So I have a bot that goes through those every morning and just checks that there aren't any big error messages on them, because that's very easy. That wasn't hard to code up. Also, we have a thing that watches the load time on the sidebar, on the Google Sheets sidebar, because that's something we should worry about. So every so often I'll have a bot just go and open it and time how long it takes to see the sidebar, because these are things that we should be monitoring, and it's very easy to do that with an automation framework like Puppeteer.
Yeah. And how do you manage your release schedule and processes? I mean, are you doing more incremental changes? Do you do larger? Do you bundle changes up so you have less user disruption? What's your approach to re-upping the add-on?
So this depends, I guess, on where the change is. Backend changes are pretty much continuous deployment, because it's very, very smooth for us to deploy things directly into the backend. And we have all the smart replacements, so we don't have to worry about bothering jobs that have been running for a long time. The servers will just update as and when they can, and that's very stable. So that works really well. When it comes to the gas side, I would say Google Sheets is in a pretty good place. where you can push small changes very quickly. We rely on Clasp to get the code into basically into the document and versioned. And then it's just a matter of when you feel like it's time to deploy, which is normally every merge to master, then we will just go and click the deploy button. We haven't quite automated away the deploy button yet, but that's the next step. And Data Studio is in a whole world of deployments. Basically, because of the structure of our app, we have, there are at least 70 Data Studio connectors now, each of which is its own separate app script project. And a lot of the code is shared into a app script library. That was kind of the original structure we went for, because of course you don't want to write the same code over and over again. Most of the connectors, I'd say 95% of connectors are 95% identical. And there's a few which are completely different. But it does mean that although I can automate the pushing out to the library, there's a lot of work there to kind of propagate that change and bump the dependencies on the connectors. So that tends to be more of a batch change. But we have plans to very soon move that across to basically drop the dependency on app script libraries and use NPM packages to manage dependencies locally. And we'll just build bundles, which will then be much easier for us to deploy. Because you imagine if I want to do a one-line change which affects all connectors, I don't want to be clicking 80 deploy buttons. I'd like to just push it out and use Semver to make sure that only safe things go out quickly.
Is your use of NPM possible just because the V8 engine on the back end is modern?
We're actually still using the old Rhino engine.
Because
there's a few things we're still reliant on, but V8 is coming. But we actually pass everything through Webpack before it gets to AppScript now. So this was very useful for being able to use the latest and greatest bits of TypeScript and JavaScript without ever having to worry about whether it's supported. So I compile everything down to ES3 to put it into AppScript, and that seems to work pretty well.
This is the advantage of using TypeScript.
Exactly. That has been
old school coder.
In terms of, sorry, as I said, do you have any expectations, or you even experimented with what it would look like on running on V8?
Yeah, I've run Data Studio through a few times. I think there's one thing I've identified that doesn't currently work for us with the way we're doing it. So very soon we'll be moving to V8. Google Sheets is another question. I think there's a few more dependencies there and things we have to change before we can move. But I'd expect Data Studio to go in the next few months.
That's awesome.
And I'm excited to see how that affects performance and things.
In terms of monitoring as well, I know there's one of our regular contributors, Bruce McPherson, I think, is doing a series of blog posts around this, and he's looking at various methods, including Google Analytics. Is it your kind of add-on and Data Studio monitoring, is that mainly done through the stack driver logging?
So yeah, everything in the back end obviously is kind of almost free to log in the back end. So we have very extensive logs being collected there, and we use tools like Datadog to have automated alerts on those things. So I guess back end is Kibana, Datadog, tools like that to help us monitor and automatically make sure we catch any new issues. For gas, you make a lot of use of Stackdriver. I just put in what I think is a pretty nice little thing where obviously we have a lot of users, and if you try and log all the information to Stackdriver, you just drown in logs instantly. So I think 2 weeks ago we finally pushed out a thing where basically logging is like cached for everyone and then only dumped at the point where there's an error. So that's been working really nicely for us now. So I can basically just turn it down to absolute minimal. I'll just, for most users, I just see get data success. Okay, I'm happy with that. But if there is a problem, then I'll get a full debug output for everything that happened. So we're using that. And then also for error reporting GA, a lot of data goes to Google Analytics. And of course, is imported with our own tool into some spreadsheets, which are watched by the project managers.
I think we just lost Mikael, and maybe we got a little late for him since it's 10 o'clock at night. Hopefully it's probably the internet. Hey, but while we're waiting for him to jump back, we got another question, James, from Josh Snyder for you. Back to kind of the Rhino conversation. Do you use Rhino runtime because of any issues it triggers, or just because you didn't necessarily get around to making the upgrade yet?
In this case, not triggers. I'm not aware of us experiencing issues with triggers. I know that the one thing that's keeping Data Studio at the minute is there's an open bug to do with using the JDBC connector when that's in a library. So that's the one thing that's keeping me. But since we're about to move away from the library, it's not going to matter. So maybe there are some trigger issues, but I've honestly spent more time looking at moving Data Studio because I just know if you look at the code bases, Data Studio for us is a lot smaller and slicker. I guess just because of the model of the product, it's you need to have basically 4 entry points and then just functions that process data. Whereas our Sheets product does a billion things, and there's all these power user things in there.
With such a large customer base, are you constantly checking the Google Apps Script issue tracker as well? Just kind of bracing yourself?
We definitely keep an eye on that, but I guess we're basically a company built on connecting with other people's APIs. So I think we have to keep an eye on a lot of issue trackers. You can imagine.
So you're like a juggler with 28 balls in the air. It's not just like, you've got you connect to so many different data sources.
I'm amazed at our product managers.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm sure your customers let you know real fast too if something's not working.
Oh, yeah.
Who needs an early alert system?
Do you actually communicate with the customers through the add-on itself, or does it kind of like a link to a form? Because sometimes if there's an update, it's nice to inform anyone who opens up that spreadsheet, maybe have a pop-up to say, hey, we got an update.
So not so much in Data Studio. The kind of options for controlling the UI in Data Studio are much more limited, and the space is a lot tighter. So there, I think pretty much the only interaction we have is a form will pop up and ask you some questions when you first start using it. But that's kind of hacked into a stepped config. And it's kind of one of my least favorite bits of code. But yeah, certainly in the sidebar for Google Sheets, we have a whole series of pop-ups that can appear and do appear. There's tooltips, there's all sorts of interactivity. I'm not sure if it's running in a minute, but we did have a chat window there at one point as well. But maybe that was taken out. I can't remember.
That's interesting.
In terms of Data Studio and I guess the existing model that you've got with, a lot of the stuff is running on Supermetrics servers. Was it, other than having 70 odd different connectors, is it been quite an easy journey to integrate with that product?
Yeah, like I said, the docs are pretty great for Data Studio, so I've been enjoying that. Yeah, I think writing for Data Studio is nice because it's pretty simple as long as you know that you basically have 4 functions to implement. And as long as you don't mess those up, you're going to have a working connector. So I'm enjoying that. I'm kind of an advocate for, I say, small f functional programming, not going too hardcore, but Data Studio model really works well for just considering how pipelines of data and everything's immutable. It works really nicely.
So if somebody comes up with a great idea for the next add-on, what would your advice to them be to get their arms around going from that one-person shop to the smooth machine you've got today? Knowing what you know now, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you've made some, not wrong turns, but some that maybe went sideways for a little while. What would your coaching and your guidance be?
That's tough. I think it was quite a bit easier when the gallery was released and there was like 20 add-ons. Now there are probably like hundreds.
Yeah.
I guess it's still not impossible if you do a really good add-on, you have an original idea. We do see like add-ons now like that are just copying our idea and doing the same thing. I don't think that will be a huge success for anyone. But if you come up with something new, I think it's probably still possible to do well.
It's funny. I think you're right about that. I mean, you've got a great product with obviously a great track record, and but it's funny. I look at other use cases in the marketplace, and there are items that kind of duplicate each other or kind of elbowing for the same shelf space, so to speak. My favorite example, and we love to talk about it here, is it's kind of almost a running joke, is the mail merge. Right? There's been so many people. Even the fact that a company released one called yet another mail merge, because it's yet another mail merge. But you see obviously these different flavors for success. To your point, I think the good solutions, they get more downloads, they get better reviews, they survive, they thrive, they grow. But I've seen some released recently that come out of nowhere and they do super well, super fast. I think one of the big things is I always ask and I always wonder is around awareness. Like you said, how do you or what would you like to see as ways you could actually stand out better in the marketplace? Like, what are some of the things we're doing? I mean, now, as the user has to find their way into add-ons and say, I want to find an add-on. And then when I do find that add-on, I have to kind of know what I'm looking for or know who to trust. What would you advice you'd give us or advice you'd give somebody else trying to figure out how do you stand out in the marketplace?
Yeah, I would say, like, of course, the rating system, like surfacing the quality add-ons by ratings. I think right now there's a lot of actually fake ratings, a lot of spam there, and that's not helpful at all. So if there's anything you guys can do about that, I think that would be great. And maybe for Google to find the real quality add-ons, not necessarily the highest rated if those are spam ratings, all of them, but the actually real quality add-ons that do something new and help promote those ones and have
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of things, like I said, the ratings could be, people's cousins and brothers and relatives putting in the great ratings, or, someone who's a competitor putting in bad ratings. Sure. And we totally understand that. The neat thing is, we're kind of resurrecting the recommended for workspace. So obviously those are going to be verified, vetted, and add-ons that actually are prolific. And there's a process now where you can apply for it. I know you guys have already applied for it. And that's in the process of being vetted, but that's going to be awesome. It kind of shows that folks actually have not just a fly-by-night who threw this together, over the weekend, and all of a sudden, launching yet another thing to bring mails together. So I 100% with you agree on that with the marketplace and getting it out there.
I guess one of the questions is what's next for Supermetrics? Where is it? Just growth?
We do hope.
Have you got lots more APIs that you and other vendors that you're looking at to integrate with?
Yeah, that's kind of the obvious growth path for us, like adding new APIs, and that's of course where we put a lot of effort. So the client base is constantly asking us to add new sources, and we do have a big team to develop those sources, and also to improve the current connectors and to maintain them. Of course, when we have like almost 100 different connectors, just maintaining them is a huge task. Beyond that, we are looking at various things like expanding the destinations. So now we started from spreadsheets, then we moved into Google Data Studio. We support some other BI tools as well, and more lately we also moved into data warehousing. So if you want your marketing data into Google BigQuery, for instance, then we support that as well. So, we can support you wherever you are on your data journey. So having products for each of these different kind of steps in the way. And maybe the next steps there is, we make it very easy to get the data. So how can we add more value on top of that data? So bringing some other interesting data sets on top of that data, enriching that data, adding other kinds of logic there, making that data more useful. And then we are also looking at how we can go beyond reporting and analytics, so also feeding back into the sources. So can we offer recommendations to the marketers on what they should be doing in the advertising side, and maybe even giving them like kind of click here to put this recommendation into effect, and that could be quite interesting as well.
Hey, Bart, we got a question from Josh Snyder, wants to know how they can apply to be recommended. Can you throw up one of those links that we can share and let them know? So it's a simple form you fill out, and there's a link. You can find it directly from one of the posts, or if you can put the short link up there, maybe you can screenshot that and plop it down and go forward.
Oh, you're making me work now.
I know. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll get on it. Don't
worry. Well, it's perfect. No, but we want to have more folks in the program, and that would be super. That would be super awesome. So see if you could do that. So while Martin's doing that, not that I'm promising anything, but what would you ask of us? What do you think Google needs to do to kind of, either help your business or help other businesses like yourselves, or what's kind of the next thing you ask for? What's the big vision type of thing too? I mean, I know that's an open-ended question, an open ticket, and it's not necessarily one I expect to pay off. But what do you think is kind of the things you'd like us to see from making the platform, making the tools, making the journey, making the experience better for either you or other folks like you?
Can I ask not a big vision thing, but a kind of small technical thing that I've been asking for the past 6 years.
6 years, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and with Excel add-on support, by the way. So when you have the sidebar, why couldn't we have events like changing the active cell in the spreadsheet called directly into the client code in the sidebar, so we could do something in the sidebar immediately, responding to events that the client does there. Because right now we need to have this continuous calling to the Google Apps Script to detect any changes, and that's just, it's slow and it's inefficient and it's just stupid.
Yeah, so the one thing the new add-ons give you is it gives you a little more interactivity with the document, right? I can do things and change things in the document, but you're right, having the notion of the document firing off to the add-on would be super nice. You may want to keep asking for that. And I agree, it's good to have. One of the challenges you mentioned is performance. The other one you obviously mentioned is safety, and so it's kind of making sure that there's no no challenges that add-ons bring to the native spreadsheets themselves. But you're right. I think it's having more of that integration. Keep that one in mind. I think there's lots of things they're looking at to figure out how we bring these things closer together.
Vance has got one. I think it's a long-standing issue. I don't know, Mikael and James, is this something that comes up quite often from your customers?
Yeah, definitely. This is the second issue that I would bring up.
And my other one, and I've asked repeatedly to the point where the PMs asking me to stop asking, is I would like nicer error messages and nicer. My favorite is the one where it says, are you sure you want to run this? Turn back, warning, danger. Go back to safety. I'm like, that's a little harsh. When any human hears "go back to safety," they normally do go back to safety. So I think it would be nice if we kind of didn't do that. Which brings me on another question I do want to ask you. So the profile of your average user, most of your users probably work for companies, right? They're not. There's probably some folks that are on their own, and maybe some folks are working with their own, public domain account. But how do you approach getting around the admin journey for somebody who's like, you have a user that discovers your tool, wants your tool, needs your tool, but they're on the marketing team, and they've got to go convince somebody back on the IT that Supermetrics, this company from Finland, is super safe. How do you work with your customers? Like, what's the advice you give? Or how many times do you have an angry admin on the phone saying, please stop giving these things to my users? What's the approach you take to kind of win over the hearts and minds of the folks that own the domain, not just the folks that love your product?
We actually haven't seen too much difficulty in the Google side on that. Maybe on the Excel side, there are more conservative companies, and it's more difficult on that. On the Google side, I think typically the users, they may test out with their own Gmail first to see if the product works, and then they can show to their superiors or their IT team that it actually it's a really useful tool, and then they can convince their IT. Of course, if they do contact us, we do provide some good helpful points there. We've been in the market for many years. We've never had any problems with data security. We have the SOC 2 certification. We do have hundreds of thousands of users, and I know pretty much all the big companies, including Google, is using our product. So it's also some proof that we can be trusted.
One of the big things, and I'm a novice on this, but one of the big things I always hear about is like the EU data protection laws are way stricter and firmer than in the US. In the US, we give data to everybody. Obviously, the EU is way more stringent, right? Are there things you have to do differently there, or is there anything affecting your business that you have to actually look out for? Is there any other certifications you have to run through because you're selling a lot to the EU?
Yeah, for sure. So when GDPR came into effect, we needed to do quite a lot of changes. So we moved all the European customer data into Europe. So before that, it was in the US. So that was a big big technical thing that we needed to do. And of course, there's a lot of kind of paperwork that we need to do as well, like putting in place all the everything that GDPR requires, basically. But we managed to do that. It's not a problem for us, and I think in general we are quite happy with GDPR as a system. Like it offers protection, and for our business, it doesn't really hurt us because we don't really deal with personal level data.
Right.
But in a few minor use cases, but for most part we deal with aggregate data. So your campaign level data, how does this advertisement perform versus this other advertisement? We don't, have much personal data at all going through our system.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's good to hear, though, because I know that's it's obviously a concern of customers. Obviously, developers who don't have a law degree on data protection are like, oh, now what do I have to do with this? So I always just go,
Both Steve and I used to have Jetback Care, and then we found out about GDPR, and it's aged us significantly.
Well, the lawyers definitely were quite happy with GDPR, and we also, I can't even remember how much we paid them, but I think it can be a challenge for you if you're doing this on your own and you can't afford this, put $100K on lawyer expenses to make all the documents. It can be difficult.
Yeah, we hear that too. That's another question. Obviously, this is your business and you've been successful at it and you have the use of it. But we do hear from, again, folks like you were a decade ago. The barrier of entry is kind of rough, right? If I have to go get certified and spend $15,000, $20,000, $50,000 and get my own attorney and all this, before I make a nickel, I got to spend a lot of not just dimes, but dollars and euros. What's your advice or approach there? Like, what would you tell someone to think about when it comes to approaching that? I know that those things they didn't exist back, a decade ago, when the marketplaces were a little more wild west.
Mm-hmm. It's tough. Probably if I can't say that's an advice, but I would probably just go ahead and do stuff until I'm at the scale where I actually need to care about.
Do you ever do? Do you have any direct deployments of your products, or do you do everything through the marketplace? Like, do you have any?
Through the marketplace, yes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, again, it's like a lot of add-on writers, they're going to do that. As a first to, going directly, you can reach a much larger audience by being in a marketplace versus, obviously having inside sales that are talking people through things. Yeah, it'd be kind of hard.
Yeah, the marketplace has been really, really good for us.
No, that's good to hear. No, that's good. That's good with it. No.
My advice, Charles, on that aspect of, data protection requirements and so on, is you can do a lot of on-the-job training. I knew nothing about GDPR 3 years ago, and now I'm talking to our policy officers about lawful basis and can we do something. So I think there's a lot of information out there to help.
Yeah, no, I think there is a lot out there. I think, the funny thing about being in the U.S., we have many flavors of our own, driven by our federal and our governments, and so. It's it's like speaking multiple languages. I love the fact that you get a couple of guys from three guys from New York who speak multiple languages. Steve and I are still trying to figure out the the first language we got. So I love the fact that you seem more flexible in New York. So that's awesome.
Well, I think we're out of time.
Fine.
But I want to show off. I've still got my.
Oh, that's cool.
He's got the T-shirt. That's where it went.
Nice.
So.
I actually forgot to put on mine, so
I just need to start a company now.
Well, I just like to say on behalf of everybody listening in and ourselves, thanks so much for joining us. It was really enlightening. It's great to hear your story. Also, thanks for your support and just congrats on your success. And that was it's tremendous.
Thanks a lot for having us here.
Yeah, we're looking forward to continuing to watch the journey.
Yeah, and I also want to thank Google for giving me and us this opportunity to develop these add-ons and it's been quite an experience for sure.
Absolutely. Awesome.
You've still got your hair, so it couldn't be all bad. A good experience. Sorry.
I think that it has been moving into a good direction early years.
Well, thanks for that. Thanks, Mikael. Thanks, James. It's been really fascinating on what you're doing at Supermetrics. Something we should mention actually before we go. One final thing. I know, James, you have been starting to. I haven't got the link here, but you've been starting to share some of the Supermetrics insight in terms of development. So I think you've got a blog set up now.
Yeah, we just started a dev blog on dev.to. Never really sure how to pronounce that. So I think there's actually only one article up at the moment, which is me. But yeah, definitely hoping to spread more about what we're doing with AppScript and also on the back end. I think there'll be some good insights there over time, but bear with us while we get it started.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome.
I'll just put that in the chat for the folks at home. So yes, and thanks everyone who contributed in the chat. It was great to have your comments and your kind of community sharing of approaches that you have as well. So thanks for that. And I think given the time, we will say goodbye and see you all next time. But happy scripting.
Bye.